So your granddad bought a house on a teacher's salary in 3 years. You need over 7 years today, assuming prices don't keep rising. But here's what they don't want you to know. Your money should buy more every year, not less. And there's a specific moment when they broke this system. So what actually happens when money works for everyone? I spent the last 10 years going down way too many rabbit holes about money. And 3 discoveries change everything. First, there's a specific moment when money's natural system got completely broken. And I can show you the before and after. Second, what happens when all 8 billion people start competing to make your life better instead of a few hundred taking from everyone else? Third, this is already starting to happen in ways that sound impossible. But this isn't just about money. It's about whether your kids will ever be able to afford a home and the type of world they'll live in. So here's the first thing that blew my mind. I first heard about this idea from Jeff Booth, the author of The Price of Tomorrow. But it took me years to really get it because it's the complete opposite of everything we see.
You almost have to say it 1,000 times to yourself. The natural state of the free market is deflation. Yeah. Which means you've never lived in one. No, never.
In a natural free market, everything should get cheaper every year while getting better. I know that sounds crazy. We're so used to inflation that the idea of deflation sounds like a disaster. But here's the thing. Deflation with our current monetary system actually would be a disaster. That's because our system needs constant inflation to work. It wasn't designed to work as a global free market. It's designed for something else entirely, which I'll show you soon. But first, let me show you why things should cost less each year in a true free market. Think about your smartphone. In the 1960s, you could buy a calculator called the Sharp CS10A, costing $1,500. That's about 14K in today's money. Today, your phone can solve any math problem the Sharp could and access way more through the internet, and it's basically free. Here's what clicks for me. Every year, humans get better at making things. Better technology, smarter processes, better designs. Farmers learn how to grow more food with less work. Car makers figure out how to make cars safer with fewer materials. Engineers design phones that are more powerful but cost less to make. This improvement should make you richer by making everything cheaper. That's how the world is supposed to work. Your money should buy more each year, not less. But our world does the exact opposite. I found this perfect example from Mike Maloney's series, The Hidden Secrets of Money.
This is my father. He was manager of an auto parts store, and here's his tax return from 1955.
He made $9,600 per year, paid 12% in taxes, and the average home cost? $8,500. He made more per year than his house cost. Today, that same job pays
$70,000 with 25% taxes.
But houses cost $415,000. Instead of making more than a house costs, he now makes only 20% of what a house costs. But here's what really got me. We've had 70 years of amazing technology improvements since 1955. We have power tools, robots, better materials, and computer design. Building a house should be way cheaper today, not 50 times more expensive. So what happened? Now, I want to be clear, the world before 1971 wasn't perfect. There was still plenty of government control, limited global communication, and most people couldn't participate in global markets like we can today, thanks to better technology. Even the gold standard had major problems. Governments took gold from citizens in 1933. It was better than what we have today, but governments could still control it. Now, I know all this inflation, deflation thing sounds a little bit confusing, so I just remembered a talk I saw in Bitcoin Prague by Dominic Frisby. Let him explain this a little bit better.
What you see here is the consumer price index in the UK and the US over the course of the 19th century when money was gold. And over the course of the next 40 years when money was sound, you saw that prices more than halved. In other words, the same wage over the course of that 40 years would have bought you double as much.
And that is an example of what happens in a sound money system. Throughout history, they'd slowly make currencies worse by mixing in cheaper metals or printing more paper currency. It may look different across cultures and centuries, but every government has eventually done the same thing to money. Slowly debase it until people lose faith and it becomes worthless. Don't believe me? In 1971, Nixon removed the US dollar and every currency from gold. And here's the thing, they knew exactly what they were doing. Catherine Austin Fitts, who worked with President Bush in the late 80s, exposed this perfectly.
He said, we are going to hollow out the middle class in the West, and we are going to devastate our culture. All to make culture? Money. Yes, our culture. We're going to devastate our culture.
The system wasn't broken by accident. It was designed for extraction, not abundance. Now, I've got to be honest, when I first heard this, it didn't really click for me. But when you really strip it back to first principles, inflation is theft. And I'm going to prove it to you. If I printed £20 notes in my spare room and then bought my weekly food shops, that would be called theft. When the Bank of England does this exact same thing with billions, they just call it quantitative easing. And here's the proof. With £1,000 in your savings account in 2020, you could buy about 10 weekly food shops at £100 each. With that same £1,000 in 2025, you can only buy about 6 weekly food shops at over £150 each. So who stole the 4 weekly food shops? Here's exactly how the theft happened, and this is directly from the Bank of England's own documents. First, the Bank of England announces quantitative easing. Next, the Bank of England buys bonds from asset managers and investors. Third, these people now have cash instead of bonds. Fourth, they use this cash to buy houses, stocks, and other assets. Fifth, asset prices jump. Sixth, your weekly food shop rises. And then seventh, your wages rise maybe 12 months later, if you're lucky. And each time they do this, they call it something different and use different methods to try and keep people confused. But it always has the same effect because they receive the new money first. Look, this is the definition of theft: taking someone's property without consent. Your property is your purchasing power. Without consent, you didn't vote to devalue your savings. Taking the new money diluted everyone's existing money. You worked for that purchasing power, but they printed it and spent it before you even knew what happened. That's not economics, that's theft. This is essentially the Keynesian versus the Austrian economics debate, and you can learn way more about this in books like The Bitcoin Standard. And this is exactly the opposite of natural deflation. Instead of technology making things cheaper for you, money printing makes everything more expensive.
And then over the course of the 20th century, something happened. Money changed, it became fiat, and suddenly the consumer price index has gone absolutely bananas.
I saw Jack Mallers speak at Bitcoin Prague, and he shows this data perfectly.
This is the 95th percentile's growth in wealth versus the rest of us. All in 1971, that's weird.
And the social breakdown doesn't stop there. People are waiting longer to get married because they can't afford to start families. Divorce rates are skyrocketing as financial stress tears relationships apart. We're eating less real food and more processed junk, with childhood obesity tripling. Birth rates are plummeting as people can't afford children. And even more people are going to prison as financial stress pushes them towards crime. So instead of technological progress making you richer through falling prices, money printing makes you poorer through rising prices. Our wages simply cannot keep up with the amount of money being printed and pumped into certain assets. The wealth gains that should benefit everyone get captured by whoever gets the new money first. And here's the crazy part. We live like kings compared to people 100 years ago. We have smartphones, the internet, GPS, cars that are way safer. We've made incredible technology progress. But instead of feeling more wealthy, we're more stressed than ever. Jack's data shows
there are more people 18 to 29 living in their parents' house because they're depressed and they're jobless and they're in debt than there was during the Great Depression. That's weird.
So we have the technology of kings, but the money stress of peasants, because our money system is stealing the benefits of all that progress. So every year we wait to move into a global free market, we're getting poorer while working harder. But imagine a different world. Jeff Booth describes it perfectly.
I see a world with 8 billion people in service of 8 billion people.
What does this actually mean? In a global free market, everyone on Earth would be competing to make your life better and cheaper. Here's how it works. In a real free market, you get paid by creating value for other people. The more people you help, the more money you earn. But then someone sees your success and thinks, I can do that better for less money. so they compete with you. So you have to get even better and cheaper to keep customers. This forces everyone to keep improving and lowering prices. Remember, prices should be falling because of this competition and technology progress. It still sounds like a fairy tale, right? Well, here's a real example. A calculator that cost $1,500 in the 60s dropped to $150 in the 70s, $30 in the 80s, $10 in the 90s, and today it's free on your phone. This is happening everywhere that technology touches. For example, Netflix made entertainment cheaper than cable TV. Amazon made shopping cheaper and faster. Your phone replaced a $10,000 camera, a $500 GPS, $200 iPod, and a $100 calculator. Uber made rides cheaper than taxis. And eventually, with self-driving cars and a digital payment system, your car could actually start to make you money whilst you're sleeping. But the scam money system is conflicting with this. Here's what I mean. Think about our food. And here's where it gets really sneaky. Big food companies spend millions lobbying politicians who then use your tax money to subsidize corn, soy, and sugar. The exact ingredients these food companies need to maximize their profits by keeping food on shelves longer. Remember, they knew what they were doing. Catherine Austin Fitts said,
And we're going to devastate the quality of the food supply.
He said that?
Yes.
Look at this proof. Chipotle's burrito with real chicken, beans, and vegetables costs £12.95. McDonald's processed sausage and egg McMuffin meal costs £6.99. Think about it. McDonald's food needs factories, preservatives, and industrial processing. Chipotle just grilled chicken and mixed vegetables. The more processed food should cost more, not less. This is exactly backwards, and it's only possible because your taxes subsidize McDonald's ingredients, plus the politicians give them tax breaks while real food gets nothing. Funny enough, I was just speaking to a friend about this who creates smoothie pouches that help people get more fiber. And he was seeing in real time how he doesn't get any tax breaks or benefits, whereas other companies that put in these unhealthy products get these benefits. You're literally paying taxes to make junk food cheaper than real food. Then you are paying again when it makes you sick. Without these rigged subsidies, healthy food would become the cheap option because that's what people would choose. And entrepreneurs would figure out how to make it even cheaper. So what would this world look like in the workplace? I know a lot of people are freaking out about AI taking over people's jobs, but here's what Jeff Booth has to say.
In the world I describe on Bitcoin, prices fall by exactly the rate that those people go.
Wait, what? Why?
The productivity that we choose, the prices fall by that. They don't need the job anymore because prices keep falling and falling and falling.
Oh my God, okay.
I know this sounds unreal, but think about it from first principles. If everything is getting cheaper every year and AI is automating more and more jobs, we simply wouldn't need to work as much. Families could go back to one person working, which was the norm just 50 years ago. Then that person working 20 hours a week, potentially just 5 hours a week, and getting richer the entire time as prices keep falling. I know this sounds impossible, but use that car example I gave you earlier where your car could actually start paying you money. The same thing could actually happen with your heating bills. What if there was a way that you could heat your house and get paid to do it? This honestly is already starting to happen. If you're hearing all this for the first time, I know you won't believe this because I didn't for a very, very long time. And it's not until you actually start converting prices into real money terms instead of using dollars that you see this is already happening in real time. This honestly isn't some far-fetched utopian future. It's already happening. So what would daily life actually look like if everyone works less? Instead of working a full-time job, plus finding a side hustle just to put food on the table, people would have the mental freedom to actually solve problems they care about, raise your own children and care for your elderly parents instead of paying others to do it. Finally, pursue the hobbies that you've always wanted to try or start a business around things that matter to you. It would become the norm again to grow your own food and know exactly what you're eating. Now, I know you're probably thinking this sounds utopian and there's no way humans could live in a utopian world. But there's something that's never existed before. Money that governments can't mess with. For the first time in history, we have truly limited digital money that no one controls. It's called Bitcoin. And in places where people use it, we're already seeing glimpses of this future. When I was at Bitcoin Prague, I met people who haven't used a debit or credit card in years. They found themselves living on a Bitcoin standard in places like Madeira, Portugal, and their quality of life has increased dramatically in a relatively short period of time. On a personal level, when I went to Prague, I actually managed to live off Bitcoin for the few days I was there. These Bitcoin circular economies are also existing in more and more places, such as Lugano, Switzerland, Bitcoin Jungle, Costa Rica, and Bitcoin Berlin in El Salvador. But this isn't the magic of what a global free market could do. Here's a real example of a story I stumbled on recently. There's a Romanian DJ named Sava who released his music directly on a blockchain platform instead of through Spotify. In 2 hours, he earned over $10,000 from 130 supporters, while giving them tokens that could become more valuable if his music takes off. Let me put that in perspective. A song with millions of plays on Spotify might earn $3,000 to $4,000 after the platform and record label take their cuts. But in a true global free market, everyone wins. Sava gets paid fairly, fans get exclusive access and potential upside. No record label or platform takes 70% of the value for not really doing anything. Notice the pattern here. Every time we remove the middlemen and money manipulation, people compete to create value instead of competing to extract it. So what do we have here? Money that can't be printed, can't be controlled. Check out the previous video about the DOPES framework to learn more about this. And people get rewarded for creating real value. But when these things combine, they create something that has never existed before, a global free market. The question isn't whether this is possible anymore, because it's already happening. The question is, do you want to be part of building this world? Or do you want to keep playing musical chairs in the old system? This window for early adoption is closing fast. These circular economies are growing at a rate not seen before. Because in this new world, instead of fighting over a shrinking pie, everyone competes to make the pie bigger and cheaper for everyone else. And that's a world where money finally works for everyone. Listen, I get it, I still know what you're thinking. This sounds too good to be true. But what if I told you there are real people already benefiting from Bitcoin in ways that sound utopian? It turns out there are. And you need to watch this video next, where I'll show you exactly how Bitcoin is already changing people's lives, including a Kenyan barber who could afford an education for the first time, thanks to Bitcoin, despite never owning any or even knowing what Bitcoin is.